Alright guys, what we're going to do is, I'm not going to go over every question in the exam, but some of them. And there will be an opportunity for you to get a few points back if you miss some questions. So you're going to have to do a little bit of work there if you want to get the points back. You know, pretty much everybody did really well on the exam. There were a lot of A's, a lot of B's. I don't think anybody made below a C. So, yeah, y'all did good, but maybe you want to eke out a few more points. So let's look. Which one would be a good one to talk about? So here we go. Given these statements, what does B equal? X is 5, so B is equal to this expression. So we have to evaluate it in the parentheses order and including the rules of precedence, PEMDAS. So looking at it, the innermost parentheses is x plus 2. So since x is 5, that's 7. Now we're going to do the next set of parentheses. Multiplication happens before addition, so 7 times 2 is 14. Plus the 6 is 20, divided by 5, so that should be 4. On this question, the most common mistake, here we have to turn this formula into an expression. Sometimes people leave off the multiplication symbols. You know, sometimes I see things like this: 4 divided by 3, pi, r, you know, something like that. In this language, we can't do that. We have to actually explicitly call out the multiplications. So this is just remembering that 2 stars means to the power of. We could have also done r times r times r. And since the expression wants it to be stored in a variable so that we can print it out later or something, there we go. That would be the correct answer. Are these parentheses necessary? No, not really. We could remove all of those. So let's see. Remembering that slash slash means floor division, which rounds down, also known as integer division in other programming languages. So here we have x floor division, y minus 1. X is 9. Y is 3, so y minus 1 is 2. 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, but that rounded down would be 4. Why do we round down? Because of the floor division. X floor division y, well, 9 divided by 3, there's no reason to round it down because that's just 3. X percent y, that's modulus. How many times does 3 go into 9? It goes in 3 times with the remainder of, and that's what modulus means, is remainder of. So 9 divided by 3 gives us a remainder of 0. Plus 1 is 1. And here we go. X divided by 2, well, x is 9, so divided by 2 is 4.5. Minus 2.5, 4.5 minus 2.5 is 4. Here we need to remember that when you add 2 strings together, it performs concatenation and the result is another string. So the string of 3 plus the string of 2 is another string. I think everybody got pretty much all the others correct. Here a lot of people had a little more trouble on this one than they should have. We want to display the message, what is your age? Let the user add some input. It should be stored in a variable named age. Make sure it's converted into an int. Now you could do this all in 1 line, or you could do it in 3 lines. To do it in 1 line, you do this. Age is equal to, we want the integer version of it, input, and we put our message in here. What is your age? If you're having trouble entering this thing because it's a small box, you can drag the box out. I've been told that on the Mac you can't hit the enter key and have it stay in the same box. If that is true, you could write the expression in another app like Word or something like that and then paste it into here. So that's how you do it all in 1 line. Or you could do this. Age is equal to input, and then put your text there. What is your age? Then you need to convert that to an int. age is equal to int age. That would do it. Or you could do it in 3 statements. You could print the message out first. And this is actually typically what I do, because in other languages you don't get the luxury of specifying the message in the same command that gets you the input. So if you're going to do that, then you don't pass anything. You don't pass any arguments into the input function. So we print what is your age, we get the input, then we convert it to an int. Now this one's very similar, except I made a boo-boo. If you're going to convert feet to inches, you don't divide by 12, you multiply by 12. So that was dumb. But we want to ask the user for their height and feet. We want to let them type in some input, store the result. Then we want to convert that to a float. So here's one way to do it. Age is equal to input. What is your height and feet? Then we can convert that to a float. H is equal to float. H. And again, you could do that in 1 or 2 or 3 lines. Now we want to supposedly divide the value by 12. That's kind of dumb. H is equal to H divided by 12. That's one way to write it. It really should be times 12 to get to inches. We could give it a better variable name. Inches is equal to height divided by 12. Really times 12. And then we just need to print that out. Print inches equals comma, like that. Now here's something that I need to comment on, and it relates to how you're going to be able to get some points back on the exam if you missed any of these questions that rely upon this. If you have a statement like this, H is equal to H divided by 12, or you have the statement H is equal to H times 12, you can express it in a sort of shortcut nomenclature where you do H divided by equal 12. That is the same thing as writing H is equal to H divided by 12. I believe that's called a compound operator. And there were too many questions on this exam that relied upon the compound operator. I know that I mentioned this as a result of a quiz, an earlier quiz or an earlier assignment, I forget which, where I asked about compound operators, and it's only mentioned in one place in the book. But I believe that my own hand created assignments did rely upon it. But so many people missed the questions that rely upon compound operators that I'm going to give you credit for them. So here we go. H is equal to H times 12 could be reworded as H times equals 12. That means, excuse me, not plus equals, times equal. That means the same thing. You could put a space there if you wanted to. Don't need to. So this is the same. This H equals H times 12 is the same as H times equals 12. H is equal to H divided by 12 is the same thing as H divided by equal 12. So it's just a shortcut nomenclature. In some languages, there is an advantage to doing it this way, which is that the value of H is only evaluated once rather than twice in order to calculate this and store it back. In Python, there's really no speed improvement for using a compound operator. And in truth, in most languages, in most cases, there's not. Everybody knows the absolute value, I think. X minus y, 1 minus 10 is negative 9, but the absolute value of negative 9 is a positive 9. All right, write a line of code that will use the max function to calculate the maximum of x or y. Now here a lot of people went crazy and started copying from here, and they added 2 to x and they subtracted 1 from y. Copying from that did not get you full credit because I wasn't asking you to figure out the maximum of x plus 2 or y minus 1. I asked you to calculate the maximum of x or y. So that's just this, max of x or y. Anything else, you know, is just frippery. We don't need that. So I'm going to remove that stuff. And we were supposed to store the result in a variable named m. So m is equal to max. Whoops, why do I have y divided by y? M is equal to max x divided by y. So here the only reason we had the plus 2 and a y minus 1 was just to make it more of a thought problem. X plus 2, well, x is 1, so that's 3. Y minus 1, well, 2 minus 1 is 1. So what is the minimum of 3 or 1? The minimum of 3 or 1 is 1. I think I'll skip that one. Some of these you could type into Python now that you've already done the exam and just see the answer and try to figure out why. But most people got these right. Most people got the flowchart symbols correct, but if you need a review, the rectangle is a simple task. It's called a process block. So if you're going to do math, a is equal to x plus 10, that goes in a rectangle. The diamond is called a decision block, or a condition. So if you're going to put an if statement or a while statement in a flowchart, then you put it in a diamond. And then on this rhombus, the tilted rectangle, that is input or output. So you put your input or your print statements in that. What this if, en, name nomenclature does is it checks to see if this value is contained within this string. And the same nomenclature works on arrays as well, on lists. So is there an E in row state? Yes, there is. So it would print 1. Here's the opposite. If E is not in name, well, E is in the name, so it's not going to print 3. It's going to print 4. What is lower does is check to see if the string is all lowercase. The string is not all lowercase, so it would print mixed case. Does row state end in an E? Ends with E? Yeah, so it would print 5. Is this all alphanumeric? No, there's also a symbol here. A symbol, a hashtag, or an exclamation marker, something like that is not an alphabet or a numeric character. So this would be false and it would print 10. I think the vast majority of people got that one right, the flowchart. How do we import turtle? Well, it's just import turtle. More people got this one wrong. How do we create a turtle? Well, if we've done import turtle already, then we do Donnie is equal to turtle dot turtle with a capital T and then parentheses. Some people left the parentheses off. I think I gave you majority credit if you did that, probably not 100%. And if there were other permutations of it, like turtle parentheses, something like that, that's not correct. The syntax is your variable name is equal to the class name, what you imported, followed by the dot, followed by turtle in all caps, and the parentheses to create your turtle. What shape would this draw? Well, it's going to draw a four-sided figure. X starts off as 1, and we repeat while x is less than or equal to 4. And it's got 90-degree angles, so that pretty much indicates that it's going to be a square. I think most people got that one right. When you have a decision statement contained inside the branch of another decision statement, that's called nested. So what a nested if looks like in Python is you'll have an if, and then some clause, a is less than 10, colon. And then you'll have another if inside it. If b is greater than 20, colon. Then you do something inside there. Occasionally when you have syntax like that, you could replace that with an and. If the logic is simple like that, then you could do this. If a is less than 10 and b is greater than 20, print hello. But you may have more complex nomenclature than just this. So if, for example, you had this and you had some else's thrown in, else, print, goodbye, and for good measure, we had another else down here. And I'm forgetting my colons, so it would not compile. Print, what's up, whatever. This is still a nested if here, even though it has an else clause. And we could nest another if down here inside the else. If b is equal to 20, whatever, then do something else. Print red, else, print blue. So that's a nested if. And you can see that this if is nested within the else block, and this if else is nested within that if. Okay, continuing to scroll. These are examples of multi-line comments in different languages. Java and C and C++ support the / nomenclature. This one is for HTML. A multi-line comment in Python can be done either with 3 double quotes or with 3 single quotes. And looking at it, it looks like there's something odd here, where there's two quotes of some kind, and then the other one is raised like a superscript. I don't know why it looks like that, but that's how you create a multi-line comment. So here's one of the questions that relies upon the compound operators. And it was worth 4 points. So if you miss some of these, then you lost some points on the exam. Knowing what we know now, if we're going to rewrite x% equals 2, we would write it like this. X equals 4, x equals x modulus 2. Well, 2 goes into 4 evenly with no remainder. So in this case, x would equal 0. Here we go. Oh, x is equal to 1, x plus plus. Well, that's actually not Python, so that's an error. Some other languages support that, C++, Java, maybe JavaScript, but Python does not. X equals 1, x times equals 1. Well, you rewrite that as this. X equals 1, x is equal to x times 1. At that point, it's pretty clear that that would equal 1. And then here we go. X is equal to 1, x plus equals 1. X equals 1. Rewrite that as x equals x plus 1. And that one becomes clear. 1 plus 1 is 2. So, if you missed any points on this, and you want them back, I'm going to want you to create a document for me that lists which questions, question 34, and just say how many points you need back on this one. So say you got 2 of them right and 2 of them wrong. You can tell how many points you got correct by coming over and looking off on the right side, and it'll show, a 0 out of 1 or 0.75 out of 1 or 2 out of 4 or whatever. You'll be able to tell by looking on the right hand side of the screen. So just make a note that you want 2 points back on that one, or however many points you missed. I missed 2 on this one. Okay. And you're going to keep adding to this as we go along. Here's another one that relied on compound operators. So you can probably get a point back from this one. You know, if I gave you partial credit, or if, you know, then only put that you need, you know, partial credit on it. So working this one out in our head, T is equal to 2, F is equal to 4. And by the way, a lot of things that I missed, that you missed, there'll be a feedback button underneath here. And you can click on the feedback and you'll see my explanation of why you missed it. Not everything you missed has a feedback button. But, you know, for some of them I tried to explain what was wrong. So, for this one, if T is equal to 2, and F is equal to 4, and X is equal to 1, that means that by the time we start, T equals 2, F is equal to 4, X is equal to 1. Now that's not proper Python syntax, of course. X plus equals T. Well, we know now that that could be rewritten as X equals X plus T. So X was 1, we added 2 to it. So that means that X is equal to 3 at this point. Now we have this line, X multiplied equals F. X times equals F. X times equal F could be rewritten as X equals X times F. Well, at this point, X equals 3, and we're going to multiply by 4. So by the time we're all done, it equals 12. So I probably gave you a 0 out of 1 if you missed that one. I don't think I gave you partial credit. If you missed that one and you want to point back, put question 35 and say that you wanted 1 point as well. You know, just put this in a Word document or a text file or even a Python script, whatever you want to put it in. Or you can just write it straight in email. I think I'd rather have it as an external document though. So, and then you can email that document to me. Here's something to note, because there was a question later on that a lot of people missed some credit on. To do a comparison, you use 2 equal signs. To do an assignment, you do 1 equal sign. So here's an assignment. We're copying the value 1 into X. If we want to see if X is equal to 1, then we do X equal 1. Now I think almost everybody already knows that, but there was a question later where people seemingly forgot it. We'll get to that. Here we go. Another one that a lot of people only got partial credit on. How do you calculate 3 squared? Well, there's more than one way. I can think of 4 ways of doing it, but here I only list 3. 4 ways of calculating 3 squared would be like this. A is equal to 3 times 3. That would do it, you know, because it was squared. If it was cubed, we'd have to tack on a 1. A is equal to 3 to the power of 2. Then A is equal to POW 3, 2. So, and then lastly, this one works as well. A is equal to math.pow 3, 2. So Python offers a large variety of ways of doing it. Specifically, these seem to be duplicated functionality. But as I note down here, math.pow you can use with floating point data. So if you really want to, you could do something like this. A is equal to math.pow 3 to the power of 2.5. You know, and that's impossible for me to calculate in my head, raising something to a fractional, you know, value like that. But you could. So all are correct. And if you chose another one, then, you know, you didn't get full credit. If x is greater than 0 and x is not equal to y, there were a surprising number of wrong answers. If x greater than 0 and x not equal to y. One of the wrong answers that confused me that I saw repeatedly is this: if x greater than 0 and x equals y. Well, no, it wanted to know if it was not equal to y. If you stuck on the word not in front of that, then that would be correct. You could use that nomenclature, but I don't think the people who put equal use the word not. If by chance you did, then add that to your list of things that you want credit for. I probably gave you partial credit. So, if I gave you 0.75 out of, 1, then you would just say, okay, question 39, 0.25 points. What's happening here is I click the tab and it's filling in, popping up this IntelliSense kind of thing. So I'm getting space, and there we go. So we'll scroll down here. I think most people got that one right. To define a function, I think most people got this one right, but you actually have to use the DEF keyword. That means define. So that makes it a valid function definition. When you're calling the function, you don't put the DEF keyword. But this would not be a correct function call either because it's followed by the colon. So this is the correct answer. A lot of people chose this one, leaving off the DEF. And here we have the flowchart shapes again. So if you didn't know the flowchart shapes up above, then you didn't know them down here either. Most people know the symbols and their meanings. This was the most complex expression. Let's see if we can do it in our head. C is 3, and then we're going to increment C by 1. So at this point, C is equal to 4. Now we're going to calculate all this and store it into F. C times, well, we have to kind of ignore that because we have to start solving it inside out. We look for the parentheses. 2 times 3 is 6. What is 6 modulus 4? Well, 4 goes into 6 one time with a remainder of 2. So all of this is 2. And then C, which equaled 4, so that's 2 times 4 is 8. That one didn't rely on a compound operator, so I'm not going to offer credit back on that one. This one did. So A is equal to 10, B is equal to A to the power of 2. Well, 10 squared is 100. And then if we were going to rewrite this one, this is the one that the vast majority of people got incorrect. So all you have to do is tell me how much credit you want for it. B is equal to, parentheses, B plus 1. But I worded that one wrong. I might have gotten it wrong myself. Instead, it says B plus equals B plus 1. So that means B is equal to B plus 1. So what's B plus 1? Well, it equaled 100, so that's 101, and we add that to 100, so the answer is 201. More than half the class put 101, so I'm going to give you credit for it. If I gave you partial credit, just figure out how much of that point you missed. If I gave you 50% or whatever, then tell you, put on your notes that you want 0.5 points for question 51. And here's one that mystified me. Set T equal to the length of S. So many people said that S equal to 5. Excuse me, that the length was 5. Well, the question mark also counts. So H-E-L-L-O is 5, but the question mark makes it 6. So what does T equal? 6. And here's another one that I'm going to give y'all. Because I don't recall where in the text it talks about the end nomenclature. I'm pretty sure it does, but you know, I don't think that I called it out in one of my own assignments. A lot of people missed questions 53 or 54, so I'm going to give you the points. Just put, you know, on your sheet of paper how much credit you need for it. Which of these will print the word Python with a space separating two parts of the word? Well, pi and thon. We've been printing a lot like this, so number 3 would be the answer. You know, each comma in your print string winds up being translated as a space in your output. I really don't think I ought to give you credit for that one, but I will, just because a lot of people missed it. My general rule of thumb is that if more than 50% of the class misses a question, then it means that I didn't cover it, you know, previously in a quiz question or in an assignment. And here we go. Which of these will print the word Python on one line? What you do is you add this end equals argument. So let's create an example of that. I'm going to create another script. So A is equal to something, B is equal to something else, print A end equals that, and then print B. Then when we run this, it prints out the word Python. Why? Because normally the print statement forces a new line at the end of it. But if you add this end equals argument, it says I don't want a new line, I want something else. In this case, the something else is nothing, it's an empty string. But we could put something else there. We could do this. I want a question mark. So what it's going to do is it's going to print the value of A, but rather than go to the new line, it's going to print a question mark. And then it's going to print B. And there we go. So that's what the end argument does. So that one would have been the correct answer to 54. So if you missed some points on that, you know, it was a 1-point question, maybe I gave you partial credit or whatever, just figure out how much credit you need to raise yourself up to 1 point and add that to the list of points that you want for the quiz, for the exam. So for 55, what would go on line 2 for the program to print an error message if the user did not enter a number? So here they're typing something in, and we want to see if it's a good integer, if it's a good number. So we're going to have to put something here so that we write our if statement correctly so that it prints out good input. Is alnum is not correct because we don't want to let them type letters. Is valid is not correct because how would the computer know what is valid or not? We want is digit. That would indicate that the entire string was composed only of digits. It's too bad that it doesn't also allow, you know, periods like if they entered a floating point number, but for integers this works great. And here we go. Here's the other one that a mystifying number of people got wrong. I mean, I'm not going down on you if you did, but if x modulus 2 equals 0. You use 2 equals because this is an if statement. If you put 1 equal, I gave you majority credit, but I didn't give you full credit. When I say majority, I did give you partial credit if you did that. If you got the syntax more incorrect than that, then you got less credit. Okay, here I gave y'all points even if you didn't quite do what I wanted it to do. I wanted you to implement this as it was written, so that if the statement was true, we would create a variable called message and set it equal to this value. Else, we would set that string equal to something else, and then we would print that out. But the majority of people just did this, you know, print a message, enter temp, whatever, get that temperature. Temperature is equal to input. A lot of people forgot to convert that to a float. If you did that, I knocked a few points off if you forgot that. Then y'all did this. If temperature is less than 32, then print freezing. else print not freezing. And now that we have a variable, well, we don't. So we can't do this print the message statement. So if you did it that way, I think I gave you full credit for it, or at least majority if you missed the float part of it. But what I wanted to see was this. Message is equal to freezing, or else message is equal to not freezing. And then print that out. That's what I should have required for full credit. And you may think, well, they do the exact same thing, and in reality they do. So that's why I gave you full credit. However, there are times when you want to store a value in a variable for later usage, and that later usage may not simply be a print message. Maybe you're going to send it, into a function or something like that. So, anyways, y'all got credit for it. So go ahead and create your document. For the ones that I gave you partial credit on, 0.25 points out of 1 or whatever. If it involves the compound, compound operator or whatever, put the credit that you need to raise that to a point. And then email that to me, and I'll increase your score appropriately. Also, I will give you credit for questions 53 and 54 if you note those as well. Just say, question 53 1 point, question 54 1 point, unless for some reason I gave you partial credit, for that, in which case you have to adjust the amount of credit that you want on it. All right, I hope this helped. Some of this material will be repeated on the final, so it hopefully was worth going through it.